this year, but some of you might have the new list, and Mr. Sean is going to go over that. But you know, I really want to give a big thanks to Tim Patterson and Ginger's, because this week was a pretty rough week. As you guys know, you guys didn't get some emails, you guys got some emails, and they stepped up to the plate for us this. So thank you, Tim and Ginger's, for really stepping up and allowing us to have our Bon Appetit this morning.
Very good.
You know? And I think it was just yesterday or the other day?
It was Thursday.
Thursday? So that's stepping up to the plate right there. You know what I'm saying? So just enjoy like you guys always do. Make sure, I'll let Sean finish it up because he has something.
Okay. How's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
We forgot to put our signs up, but please make sure your cell phones are either on silent or off, since we're doing video recording. Also, if you have not filled out our green little slip for the raffle for the gift certificates, please do so. Make sure you get a chance to win that. Also, please put your emails on those, so that way we can add you to the email list if you're not currently getting those. We do now have the schedule for this season. We have it on the same island where we have the raffle tickets. So please feel free to grab one. If we're out, just let Alicia know and she'll print more out for you. And we also have the recipe and Tim's little bio on the same page, also back there. The way back island, we have coffee and stuff for hot chocolate and cider, so please feel free to help yourselves. And also, just in case anyone's interested, we do have copies of our sales flyer. We have a lot of nice deals in here. If you have any, you feel free to look it over. We have them right at Alicia's station. And if you have any questions, just let myself or Robert or Alicia know. And I'm going to go ahead and let Tim take over and enjoy the show.
Well, good morning, everybody. As I said, I'm Tim Patterson. I'm from Ginger Restaurant. We have a little bit of information up here about Ginger, location, hours of operation, that kind of thing. Ginger's a Pan-Asian fusion restaurant, and if that's confusing, what it really means is we take Asian ingredients and we apply them in classical styles and new inventive ways. So like with this morning, we have green curry risotto. Risotto is a classic northern Italian dish, but we're cooking it with a few Asian ingredients: coconut milk, cilantro, green curry paste, and sake instead of white wine. So we have a little bit of the East meets West kind of a thing. Here in this pot, I have chicken stock and duck stock. A little bit of duck stock because it's so nice we didn't want to use all of it. So we thinned it out with a little bit of chicken stock. And this will be our base liquid for the risotto today. In front of me, we have the French mirepoix. Mirepoix is 3 different vegetables: aromatics, carrots, celery, and onions, with 50% being onions, 25% being carrots, and 25% being celery. It's the base of almost every French sauce and every French dish that you'll find. Garlic, it says minced on the recipe, but I like sliced. I think it cooks up better. It gives that little texture with the crispiness. Arborio rice is an Italian rice that is a smaller grain than you would find with normal jasmine rice or just your everyday like Nico cow roast rice. And what it is it has a small crack down the side of each grain, and during the process we close that crack up. And during the process, during the production of the risotto, we slowly get that starch to come out, which gives it that creamy, luscious, rich flavor that we all love. Then we have sake to deglaze. I like a nice unfiltered sake to drink. For cooking, I use whatever is cheap. White Crane's a really nice brand. I've used it for a couple infusions. We use it there at the restaurant. Coconut milk, everybody loves coconuts. It's just a thing. Green curry paste. Curry paste is a paste made with, this one I think has green chilies, garlic, cilantro, shallots, some shrimp base, and what they call galangal. And galangal is is a member of like the ginger family. It's a root spice that it tastes very much like ginger, except it has a slightly more oniony flavor. cilantro, and then this is the little treat that we're going to have is to garnish it today. We're going to garnish it with truffle oil. Very nice little lush truffle oil. So to start, you get your pan nice and hot. Sesame oil to cook with. Normally I would use, if you're doing a stir-fried dish or something sauteed like that, I would use a 80% sesame to a 20% canola or vegetable oil, just because it's sesame can be a very intense flavor. A little bit of that. And very important to make sure that the garlic and the aromatics are sweated and have a little bit of their liquid released into the rice before you get too much more into the flavoring with the coconut milk and everything else, because that adds to the how it smells when the rice comes out. It gives it that base to build off of with the green curry and the duck stock and everything else. So garlic in, get that a little caramelized with your celery, onions, and carrots. And that's going to cook for about 4 or 5 minutes just to get the onions and celery kind of sweated out. And it says to cook to translucent on the recipe. What that means is basically the white onions and the celery will turn a little bit clear, and but they'll still have their al dente crunch to them. At this point, I wouldn't season anything because you're adding chicken stock, which usually has some salt content to it, and the coconut milk, which if it's more processed than normal, it'll have a little salt in it. The sake has its own natural salt content, so at the end of everything, we'll give it a little salt to make sure it tastes just right. Very nice, simple. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Stock is just you take the bones, and this is the difference between stock and broth. Stock is made with the bones, broth is made with the meat. You take the bones and your aromatics and you roast them down, you throw them into a pot with some cold water, and you just let it simmer there for about 8 hours. And it sits there and it just reduces and reduces and reduces, and it draws out all the bone marrow, the gelatin, all the really, really deep flavors, deep rich flavors that are in the bones that we love so much in French cooking, pulls out into the water, thus making it so much more flavorful. And we use the stock as opposed to water and bases for soups and sauces and things like that. So we have the best possible start to the sauce or soup or whatever dish we're making with the duck stock and these deep, intense flavors that we have with these stocks. And one of the nice things is there's a variety of stocks that you can use for a variety of different risottos. The classic one that you'll see is a white stock or a vegetable stock. And that's just to make the risotto as nice and white and fresh looking as possible. It still gives it that nice deep flavor, but it doesn't overpower the rice and the starch that comes out of it. Now that we've gotten our vegetables sauteed a little bit, we add the rice into it, and like I said before, we saute the rice up a little bit because we want that crack on the side of the grain to close up enough so when we're cooking, we're slowly pulling that starch out, and the slow addition of the starch through the slow addition of stock means that we'll have a creamier, softer risotto on the palate. Now, this dish at Ginger is actually not just a risotto dish that we serve on the menu. It's actually cooled down. We roll it up into small croquettes, and then we fry them, kind of like an Italian arancini. And the only difference is the classic arancini has a small cube of cheese in the middle, because you know Italians, they love their cheese. And Northern Italians especially, which is where risotto comes from, because they're Northern Italian, they do a lot more milk and cream and cheese. And then in Southern Italy, they do a lot more with tomatoes and chilies and citrus juices. Again, you want your rice to saute for about 2 to 3 minutes. And at this point, you want to make sure that any oil and any liquid that's come off of the vegetables is cooked into the rice, and you want it to be kind of stiff when you're stirring it around. It'll hold together, and it'll really make this the whole process a lot nicer when you start with this this sticky rice, because it's making it so all this liquid is going into the rice and making that rice taste just wonderful instead of just kind of sitting there. One thing I forgot to do, because you know all great chefs, we all forget something sometimes, is to bloom your curry paste in the sesame oil. What that does is it just opens it up. It caramelizes some of the things that are in there and gives it just a little bit more deep flavor. If you forget this, don't worry, it's not a problem. You can just add it in at any time. It'll just cook right in. It's a paste, it'll fall apart, it'll make everything taste great. No, we didn't.
What brand do you use?
Maypoi. It's you can find it at Noosa, you can find it at just about any grocery store.
Can you say the brand again?
Maypoi, Maepole. I think that's how it's spelled. So after it's cooked for a little bit and it's nice and dry, you add your sake, or in the traditional case, white wine, but you know, that Asian fusion thing. And again, you want it to cook out, and you want it to make the rice dry again. You're adding liquid, and that's kind of the goal of risotto is you add liquid, you reduce it, you let the rice absorb it slowly, and then you add some more liquid. You let it slowly absorb it, add some more liquid. And if you notice, I have my stock here on just a little bit of heat, just enough to bring it to a steam and make it nice and hot. Because when you're adding it to the risotto, you don't want to drop the temperature, because that'll affect how the starch flows out of the rice kernel into the risotto, into the finished dish. So you want to make sure it's hot so it doesn't affect any of the starch production. Nice and sticky. And you really want to use a nice tall-sided pot when you're making risotto, because it will take a lot of space, take up a lot of space, because for every cup of rice that you're using about 2 cups of liquid. And it's very, very important through this entire process that you keep stirring it. That will, like I said, beat out the starch and make it the creamiest risotto that you've ever had. Best risotto I ever had was in, oh goodness. Now I'm remembering things, now I have to think. I went on a trip to Italy right at the end of my culinary school stint at UAA. And for 3 weeks, spent a whole week in Rome, and then 2 weeks in Batoli, actually. And we stayed at this little hotel, and every day we got up, we had a nice breakfast together. The chef instructor that was kind of our tour guide got us all together and kind of told us that day's schedule. Normally it would start with a lecture, and then we'd cook ourselves lunch through the lecture, and then we'd after the lecture and after lunch, we'd either come back for a little bit more lecture, or we'd have the afternoon to ourselves. And one lecture we actually covered risotto, and the assistant was from northern Italy, and her family had this wonderful, wonderful risotto recipe that's been passed down to them. And it was the brightest white, clearest, softest, most creamy risotto I've ever had in my life. And I'm never gonna have it again. Unfortunately, because I'm not from northern Italy, I don't have an old family recipe. And I'm not as pretty as she was, so. And one thing that's you gotta be careful for is, since this is boiling, and since it does have so much starch in it, it does get very, very hot. So if you're feeling uncomfortable cooking it at a high heat, turn it down just a little bit, because it will splash and it will burn. It's like cooking polenta. I don't know if anybody's cooked polenta or grits. When it gets to that point where all the water is starting to get absorbed into the cornmeal, it starts popping and it's like hot lava. Actually, that's where quite a lot of my burns came from. One thing that I've always thought with Italian food is you always have to use wooden utensils. I don't know why, My Polish grandmother never told me to do this. No Italian chef has ever told me to do it, but I feel that last time I made tomato sauce with a metal spatula, it just didn't taste the same. So it's the little things. And every chef will tell you that they take every opportunity to add as much flavor into their dishes as possible. So with this, with the stock, I do that little bit of duck stock in there, just to give it that little added flavor. With the blooming of the curry paste, you want to do that because it adds that little caramel flavor. It heats the curry up so it perfumes into your dish. Basically, you heat up your oil, and then you put your curry paste in and stir it, and that's it. You could do truffle oil, sesame oil, olive oil. It's to enhance the flavor and just kind of give it a head start. If you're looking for that deep curry flavor. I don't know if you all can smell this, but it's very, very curry intense. And if you don't, and that's why on the recipe it has a 1.5 to 1 tablespoon that is a little heavy. If you're very sensitive to spice, I'd use about half of that. My mom is very, very sensitive to spice in any fashion. So anytime I make anything for her, I always have to keep a bottle of chili sauce next to me so I can add that spice back to it, especially when we're making barbecue. Now, one thing with curry or with risotto is it does take a little while to make. So if you're doing this for a party or for dinner, plan ahead, and what you can do is you can cook it till it's almost done and cool it down, and then bring it out like 10-15 minutes before service. Heat it, bring it back up to temperature, bring your stock back up, and finish it off with like about another cup and a half of stock. And it's just to get that little bit more creaminess. A lot of people like stiff risottos. I think that the creamier and soupier it is, not so loose that you need a bowl, but loose enough that you need a spoon kind of thing. Makes it. I think those are just a lot better than stiff risottos. So this is the only unfortunate part about risotto, is that it takes about 30 to 45 minutes and it's just stirring. If there's any questions, I'll feel free to ask them all.
Yeah, on your rice, you said, of course, it's a northern Italian dish, and the grain is grown in Italy, but
Yes.
you can buy it from.
Fred Meyer's has arboreal rice.
What do you like best? Does it care whether it's grown in Italy or Southern California?
You know, as long as it makes the dish the right way for you. I know there's some people that swear that if it's not from Italy, it's not risotto, but you know, the Californian rice, it works just the same for me. I haven't seen any differences with it. It's more about preference. It's like canned tomatoes. I know some people that say that Hunt's is the best, and you know, I agree with them, but there's some Italian brands that come from Italy, whole tomatoes, that are they just taste better. Just because they have that little extra step, they have a better environment, that kind of thing. But no, the rice preference is whatever your preference is, whatever your budget is.
How many servings does this recipe make?
This is this actual recipe, and this will make about, if you're doing it as an entree-sized dish, you'll get about, I'd say about 4 to 5 portions out of it. And with this risotto, it's actually a really nice basic risotto recipe, so you don't have to, if you want to take this and you want to change it, and instead of using coconut milk and curry and cilantro and sesame oil, you want to make a nice basic Italian risotto, you change it to vegetable stock, you change it to olive oil, you use garlic, in whatever form you like. Roasted garlic is nice too. And then you can do whatever you'd like to it. I personally, one of my favorite risottos is wild mushroom risottos, and I say wild mushroom, but it's just whatever mushrooms I can get from the store. I really like oyster mushrooms and shiitake mushrooms in my risottos, just because I think they hold up a little bit better with the constant stirring and the beating of the risotto. That in the end, it comes out as a much better dish. You can either saute them up with the vegetables, or you can saute them on the side and then add them as a finishing. If you add them at the beginning, they'll impart more mushroom flavor and more of that woodsy flavor to your to your dish. If you don't like that flavor and you just kind of like the texture or the smell of the mushrooms, add at the end, it'll add that lighter flavor. That way you can tell risotto and mushrooms from each other, kind of thing.
Where is green curry on the spectrum of heat with the other curries? And can you use other, like yellow or red?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd say red curry is the hottest, then green curry, Penang curry, and then yellow curry. And those are the 4 that we use over at Ginger. And I know there's other ones like vindaloo curry and masala curry, and those tend to be a little bit spicier or a little bit more intense in the aromatics that they use, because a lot of times they'll use clove and things like that in curry paste. I think they had some gift certificates to Ginger that they were going to raffle off. We brought presents. Truffle oil, Nusagayas or whatever specialty market that you use. I like Nusagayas. It's one that everybody knows. It's one that everyone's comfortable with. But Red Apple Grocer on, I think it's on Mountain View. Yeah, is I've heard is a really close second, if not better than Sagaya, as far as ethnic ingredients that you can find there.
What's the shelf life?
Of truffle oil, a long time. And it's one of those things where I've heard Italian chefs say that truffle oil is nothing more than perfume, because if you know anything about truffle oils, you know that they're expensive. In culinary school, one time we were doing an event, a fundraiser for the school, and the chef came into the kitchen out of her office, and she breathed a sigh and was staring off into space, and what's going on, chef? What's going on? She's like, I just bought $1,600 worth of truffles. And it was only about like a pound, maybe like 3/4 of a pound. It was not a lot of truffle, but so a lot of people will argue that truffle oil is nothing more than just the scent of truffles, not actual truffles in flavored in oil, kind of thing, like you would do with a chili oil. Oh, I gotta remember this one too. They explained to me one time, white truffles are summer truffles, black truffles are winter truffles. And what you'll find is that white truffles aren't like bright white. They're actually black on the outside. When you slice into them, they're bright white on the inside, or at least a true white truffle. But the only difference that I found with the oils is white truffles tends to be a lighter truffle flavor, because black truffle oil can be very, very intense, very, very musty, woodsy kind of smell. Something that's really exciting for me, because I love cooking and I love Italian food specifically, is that Ginger, the gentlemen that own Ginger, are actually opening up a new restaurant called Fat Ptarmigan. Fat Ptarmigan is a wood-fired pizza place, and it's actually 2 doors down on the corner of, what is that, E and 5th? Is it open now? It's opening this week, actually, Monday. So coming to Fat Ptarmigan, it's going to be great. They bought this beautiful, gigantic wood-fired oven. They haven't let me cook on it yet, but I work over at Ginger, so they probably won't let me, but I'll find a way to do it. I love wood-fired ovens.
One of the chefs, another local chef, was doing the gelato for them as well.
Yes.
Which is his gelato.
Yes, it is. And that's actually a funny story about that guy. The chef who took us around in Italy was the chef that taught him to make gelato. It's a very small world.
What'd you say the name again was? Something ptarmigan?
Fat Ptarmigan. So this risotto's just about done, and it's gotten about as much liquid as it can handle. At this point, if you want a thicker risotto, let it cook down a little bit more and let it simmer. Or if you want a looser risotto, put a little bit more stock into it. I'm going to finish this because it is a little spicy because it is green curry. Finish it with just about half a cup of coconut milk. And what the coconut milk will do is not only add that little bit of extra fat to it from the thick fat from the coconut milk on top, but what it'll also do is it'll sweeten it up and give it a little bit more, it'll cool it down just a slight bit so it's not so abrasive when you get that first bite and it just kind of ruins your palate. Get that nice and mixed in there. I'm actually surprised I'm talking so much because normally when I'm cooking, my head, that's how I cook a ginger. So, any more questions about anything? Scallop mac and cheese is really good. It's one of our classics. The made to order mac and cheese. One of my other favorites is the little risotto balls, and drawing complete blank on our menu, and I was staring at it yesterday. Our steaks are wonderful. We have a great filet that has a nice teriyaki on it. I'm not saying that they're better than Club Paris, but I've been told that they're better than Club Paris. So you come in, you eat there, and you be the judge. But yeah, those are, I really like the menu at Ginger. We're actually about to go through another menu change, kind of going into the winter, the colder months, trying to add some more heartier dishes to our menu. With this, you know, if you want to go really decadent and you want to do something that really impresses people, butter poached lobster tail. Or something a little bit more simple, some shrimp would be good. I like serving risotto with fish is usually the thing that I serve it with. Any kind of seared, grilled, anything like that. It does pair well with beef. It's just such a light flavor that next to a nice grilled steak, it kind of loses its loveliness. It loses the fact that it's such this wonderful dish that you've spent so long on making that it next to the beef it just kind of falls a little short. A little bit of salt and pepper. I like using black pepper just because I think it has a better flavor and smell than white pepper. But traditionally, really, yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things. Is anytime that we make risotto at Ginger, I always make sure to get myself at least a little bit just to sit in the back. Yeah.
The best way to keep it and then freshen it as you serve it.
I cook this all the way through, and I have no idea what time it is, but it takes about 15, 20 to 30 minutes to do it from start to finish. And but what you can do is cook it about 80-90% of the way, and then cool it down. The safest way to do that is to put it on a sheet pan or some sort of flat pan, and then put it in your cooler. And then you can take out as much as you need, put it into a pot with a little bit of stock, get that heated up, bring it back to a simmer or a boil, and if you like, finish it with some cream or some cheese, and then serve. And make a big batch of risotto. Not sure how well it freezes. I've never really tried that, but if you make a big batch of risotto at the beginning of the week, it'll last you to the end of the week, and you can have 4 or 5 different risottos.
I've had pretty good luck freezing it.
Okay.
It has a little more stuff in it. Mine is the potluck risotto.
Okay.
So it has sausage and chicken in it.
Oh, that sounds good.
And that all seems, even if you've used frozen chicken, when you freeze this all together, it comes out just great.
Awesome. Yeah, I usually make enough to last me about a day because I have so many friends that I just they hear that I'm cooking and they usually just show up on my door.
Where do you live?
Follow your nose. All right, so risotto.
So Tim, do you guys have any holiday specials, Thanksgiving, Christmas? Do you guys have anything planned for that?
I think we're gonna do a pre-fee menu on New Year's Eve for everyone. I think it's like a sit-down, 3 courses, wine pairings, that kind of thing. And Lisa. And then we'll every day we try and do 2 or 3 specials to make everybody feel good and use up some nice products and have some. I made more risotto. So. Thank you. Make that, stir that around a little bit. We are doing a few specials. Like I said, we're doing a menu change, so we will be testing out the new menu items through the specials on the menu and trying to make it so everybody enjoys everything that we're putting out there. My lovely assistant and wife, Lisa, it's a family thing. We'll be serving up some of this lovely green curry risotto, and I'll be coming by after just a moment to finish it with some truffle oil. Huh? Yeah. And yeah, truffle oil, just a little bit over top, just to give it a nice sheen. And I would serve that to my grandmother. So, or to her, yeah. You know, whoever jumps on it first. Any other questions I can answer about anything? I know that was a little short. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. I can a lot of different. Like I said, risotto is like fried rice almost for Italian. So it's a very malleable dish. If you want to add things to it, take things away from it. Whatever you want to add to it, whatever your heart desires, throw it in there because it's all about experimenting and figuring out what you like. Absolutely. Black pasta, squid ink pasta. It's quite lovely, actually.
I know I had it recently with nectarines and shrimp, and it was spectacular.
Yeah.
I have it locally, and I didn't know what made it black, but it just was really delicious.
Yep, squid ink. It's I think the squid ink would be harder to find than squid ink pasta. You can find that at I think I remember seeing some at Nusagaya, something like that. Some of those specialty stores in their pasta sections. But which one?
The Italian market.
The Italian market. Diamond, yeah. But I know that all Asian dishes, Asian markets will have it too, for that extra added seafood flavor.
Questions that I'll
Yeah.
So it looks like another winner. Happy Edgar.
You can go a little heavier. You can go a little heavy.
Have you got John? No. Oh, all right. No wonder you're
We win, we get first dibs.
I think it's about 50. A cheese chunk, yes. In the classic arancini, the cheese that a lot of people use depends on where they are from. Really, it's a local thing because people from Tuscany will use pecorino. People from northern Italy will use taleggio or romano, parmesan. It's really your hard cheese of choice. So it's yeah, something that'll hold up to the being processed and then being fried.
Yeah.
Yes, who does all the cooking at your house?
I think it's mostly him.
Yeah, it's most- yes, cilantro. The stems have just as much, if not more, flavor than the leaves do. So I use whatever I cut up, and I usually just take the whole head and just start at the top and go down to until the little wire band that they put around. That's usually just enough cilantro for whatever I need, or way too much, so I put really heavy cilantro on it. But yeah, the stems have just as much flavor. I would not use cilantro stems in stock. They tend to give a soapy flavor to the stock. But any other vegetable scraps or herb scraps usually tend or lend very, very well to whatever stock you're making. Thank you. I actually made this morning before I got here. Oh, so early. All right, how are we looking? Mm-hmm. Try and get it more centered. There.
I really am.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys some coffee already?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Have you guys some coffee already?
Huh?
Like while they're browsing.
Yeah. Go for it. I'm good for right now.
If you want to get the bag, I can get the left side.
Make sure you serve spoons. And for anyone that didn't see, we have, or didn't hear, we have information on Ginger Restaurant. We have the Ginger business cards. We have my business cards up here. So feel free to take them, share them with your friends. If we run out, unfortunately, that's all the stuff that I brought for Ginger. But I have more of my business cards. Green curry. It's the green curry paste. It's that little bit of spice and the addition of the, oh goodness, the addition of the cilantro. It helps the green curry kind of perfume a little bit.
Can you talk to us about the scallop mac and cheese? Which is, you know.
It's yeah, made to order. We do Alaskan scallops. We don't do Alaskan pasta, unfortunately. We haven't found a good supplier for it that's consistent enough. But we just make a garlic cream sauce in a pan, throw the noodles in, throw it in the oven with a pine nut basil crust, and then bake it with some roasted tomatoes. Then throw the seared scallops on top of it. Finish it with basil and truffle oil. It's really good. It's one of, like I said, it's one of my favorites on the menu just because I. No worries. Does not have enough risotto. What am I doing? There we go. How are we looking?
Very back, just basically two back rows and a couple of up there, and I'll get the couple. So.
Nothing else in there.
Yeah. Well, I usually just tend to walk around. Like, where he gets them, yes. I'll let you know if they didn't get it.
So how's everybody liking the risotto? Good? All right. It's an Italian food. You got to eat, right? Mangia, mangia. It's, you know, the one philosophy I've always had on food is that grandma is the master chef. Like, grandma has all the recipes. Grandma will tell you if you're doing it wrong. And if grandma can do it, then anybody can do it because it's that easy. It shouldn't be complicated. It's food. Italian food is all about simplicity, and it gets complicated when you start adding green curry and coconut milk and cilantro to it. But in reality, it's just rice. Just rice with stock. And that's why I like Italian food so much, is because it is so simple and so easy to just throw herbs and olive oil on a. Should be good after this. Okay. Herbs and olive oil on a pizza crust and bake it off, and then finish it with a little fresh Parmesan. Wonderful thing, most wonderful thing in the world. I used to work at Moose's Tooth, and that was my lunch for 3 years. It was just a simple flatbread, and that, you know, simple, good. Yeah, that's one of the ones that we're keeping. It's one of classic dishes. The favorite cooking class at UAA. Oh, you know, and he's actually on the schedule. I kind of chuckled at myself because my old instructor, Chef Vern Wolfram, is on the schedule to do this a couple of weeks from now. And one of my favorite classes was his, it was an extra class that people were able to take, and anybody at UAA was able to take it. It was the artisan bread class. And we mixed everything by hand, and we molded everything by hand, and we woke up really early on Saturday, and it was one of my favorite classes because we made just such great breads. He would pull out some recipes that he got from Italy, he got from these wonderful cookbooks and baking books that he had. Just really, really nice, you know, relaxed kind of atmosphere, but all we did that day was make bread. And I love making bread as much as I love cooking Italian food, so it's the other thing that I do really well.
With the curry sauce that you used on this, or the curry paste, were you on the lighter side or?
Lighter side. I was on the lighter side with this. It was, I think I used just under a tablespoon of curry in this whole, or not, 2 tablespoons in this whole batch, and this thing was pretty full. So, but in this curry, I only used just under a tablespoon, and that was enough to have it fill the entire room. So.
Did you make that in a lot of little batches, or do you cook that much?
I cooked this much at one time. Lots of stirring, lots of stirring. No, it's risotto. Risotto is one of those things that if I'm cooking risotto, I'm cooking risotto until it's done. I'm not gonna try and run off and do other things unless it's something that I can check real fast and then run back to the risotto, because it burns so easy, it sticks so much, and if you miss that 30 seconds that it's got just enough liquid in it to where it doesn't have enough liquid in it, it burns. Unfortunately, because of the high starch content. Don't let that scare you off from making risotto. It's just one of those things that you gotta pay attention to, because it will take take on a life of its own and just kind of go wherever it wants without the constant attention. So.
That was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And my lovely wife for helping out this morning. All right. Yes, ma'am.
What did you use to create the orange or yellowish brush over to make it look like a pumpkin, except for the commercial dyes? Is there any natural thing you use?
Natural coloring agents to make it look orange or yellow. Saffron will make it look yellow. It will, if it really intense saffron will it's actually like this red orange kind of color. If you're looking for like a pumpkin-y orange, pumpkin, sweet potatoes, take them and cut them up, boil them, blend them down, and sweet potatoes. And it should, I mean, with the right processing, you can actually get a liquid dye out of most foods. Like with spinach, you cook it down and strain it out, blend it up, and strain it through a very fine strainer. You'll actually have this very intense green liquid that if you add it to something like pasta, like if you're making fresh pasta, you'll have this bright green pasta. So same thing with sweet potatoes, beets. Beets will turn it bright purple. Whatever natural color you're looking for, if you find it in a vegetable that has a very intense color, like the sweet potatoes or pumpkin, and you, like I said, boil it down and then put it through a fine strainer, it will leave that in whatever cooking liquid comes out of it.
The saffron, would you use just water?
You can use water or butter. Butter works because it, especially if you're going to do like a paintbrush, it'll solidify with that color. It'll brighten up just a little bit when it solidifies, but butter or clarified butter, that's what I would use.
Turmeric, that might be a little cheaper than saffron.
Turmeric, yeah, turmeric as well, or curry powders. You can find a variety of different colored curry powders, and those will do the same thing. Cook it up with a little bit of oil or butter, and then you can use it as a brush, as a painting.
Is there a difference in the purity of the colored paste or the liquid coloring? Colored paste makes it brighter, but in the what it's made from, is it about the same thing?
It's about the same thing. I know most commercial colors they're processed with others they're basically the same process, and you can find natural food colorings that are exactly the same process that I said, like green coloring made from spinach. But for the most part, It depends on what recipe you're using. If you're using a liquid color, it will add more liquid to your whatever you're making, or it will add water to what you're making. So if you're trying to color white chocolate, do not use liquid. Do not use any commercial product. Make sure you have like a fat-based color if you're working with chocolate, because whatever water you add to it will seize the chocolate, and then you'll basically be left with a broken chocolate with oil and fat, or oil and solid separated, and it'll just look kind of nasty. So yeah, any cooked vegetable, we'll do that for you. So absolutely. Any other questions?
If you want to make that a head like you were talking about, then you mentioned spread it out on a flat.
Yeah, a baking sheet or a sheet pan. This is actually a good example. I use this at Ginger. You guys use this at home. So if you have one of these, or if you have one of these, they all work the same. It's just getting it as cold as fast as possible, so so you don't make it unsanitary at all. Yes.
My daughter's a big quinoa fan. Does this work just as well with quinoa?
Quinoa is a little different. It doesn't have the same starch content as the rice, but I have successfully made. It's the same kind of process. You gotta saute the quinoa up, fry it up so it closes whatever cracks are in the grain, and then just slowly add that liquid in, because that stirring and that slow addition of liquid is what pulls out the starch and makes it this thick, creamy dish that we have. So it will work with quinoa. It won't be the exact same product, but you can always just throw some cheese or cream into it, and that works too.
She knows that, but
Yeah.
it's the conversion they need to make, so.
Yeah, it's same thing. I would use more quinoa, or just about a little bit more than the same amount of quinoa, just because it tends to be a little bit wetter when you use the same ratios. So, all right, I stumped the crowd. Sweet. All right, thank you again, everybody. Thank you very much. Come to Ginger. It'll be awesome.